Anyway, so we've been having this fantastic day yesterday on Etty Hillesum. Heather was speaking all the way through from 9 till 3, and she's going to give us a little bit of a catch-up, but lovely to have you back again, and I'll just hand over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful to get to be with you in this kind of a way, and all of you watching online as well. I can see you in my mind's eye. So here we are, another day to an opportunity to lean into Etty Hillesum's consciousness together. For those of you who weren't here yesterday, and it totally doesn't matter if you weren't, we had an amazing time really looking at her arc of transformation and what that looked like in the couple of years leading up to her death in Auschwitz, and learning about some of her process and her experiences and the practices kind of thing that she developed. And we saw the amazing way that she became such an expansive, generative, free person, even with death looming large all around her. So more about all of that in a second. But I want to try something. I want to try something this morning that we haven't really done before, but I just thought this would be fun. So if you're willing, just repeat this after me, okay? La. La. And now pick one of those notes, take your pick, and sing it. And I want to just keep it going for a little while, just to hear our collective voice, to hear the harmony. You know, Etty was really into harmony. She just liked simple harmony, and I just think this is a beautiful thing. So pick your note. I'll just sing them to remind you. La, 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 la. So just pick one. La. Breathe and keep going. Breathe and keep going. La. We could just do that all morning, couldn't we? Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. So, okay, so I just want to set a context for this morning. I've been thinking about the word worship, and I'm aware that word, maybe for some has become a difficult word or has been hijacked by, I don't know who. It's a word we don't use a ton, at least here in the chapel. I kind of love the word worship, and I love to think of zillions of people all over the world right now worshipping in whatever tradition, in whatever way is meaningful to them. And, many of you will recall Nicholas. He talks often about the word worship as being really about that which we give worth, like what we give worth to. That's basically what worship is, what we give worth to. And I think it's an expression. Worship is an expression of love and devotion and reverence. It's an adoration for the divine. So this morning, the underlying invitational question for us is, what are you giving worth to in your life? Or who are you giving worth to? And as we go through this hour together, whatever it is, just ask yourself, in your life generally, who do you give worth to? What do you adore? Who do you adore? Who are you devoted to? And how does all of that relate with your experience of the divine? Do you have a sense of devotion, like devotion to God? I love that word, devotion. Like, do you know what it is to express adoration in your heart? What do you give worth to? What do you worship? So, I really want this morning to be an opportunity for us to individually and collectively express our worship. And it will be different and nuanced for each of us, even as this is it's a collective experience too. So that's the context of this morning, and we'll see how Etty Hillesum, in her life, in those last 2 years, those whole 2 years was an act of worship. Her whole life became, as she called it, a prayer, a constant dialogue, an experience of mutuality, of mutual loving between her and what she called the deepest part of me, God. And I think that's the whole point. That is the whole point, that our entire life becomes an expression of worship, of what we're giving our worth to, what we're giving ourselves to, of our love. For when you have started walking with God, she said, you need only keep on walking with him, and life becomes one long stroll. Such a marvelous feeling. And this is amazing, coming from someone who knew what her fate was going to be, and as the war was gathering momentum around her. So for those of you who weren't here yesterday and who don't know what I'm talking about, with Etty, just a brief summary. She was a Jewish woman, just an ordinary person like you and me. She came from an emotionally chaotic family and struggled with her own mental health, and her whole family struggled with mental health, and they were all pretty well educated and influential in their own ways. Etty studied languages, she had a degree in law, and then the war started to gather momentum around her. She moved to Amsterdam, and that's where she met this guy, Julius Speer, who became her therapist and mentor. And that's really when her journey of transformation really started. And that's when she started writing her diary. So we have the last 2.5 years of her life are an amazing account, really, of her difficult, humble, tender, hopeful, amazing transformation. And it just reveals the way that she was able to show up in the fullness of her humanity for her people, and not just for her people, for all people, for people she could have hated, for them too, and for us, as it turns out. Here we are, all these decades on, little did she know, we'd all be sitting here talking about her. Along the way, she volunteered to work for the Jewish Council, because rather than going into hiding, which she equated with choosing fear over love. Isn't that interesting? She so could have gone into hiding, but she did not want to hide and shrivel up. She wanted to show up. And so she chose to go and work at the Westerbork transit camp, which was kind of like a last stop for many Jews being put on trains to Auschwitz, 1,000 people a day being bundled into trains. And Etty wanted to be there with her people. She wanted to be in that camp as she put it, the thinking heart of the barracks. Every camp needs a poet, she mused. And she tended to the sick people, to sick, scared, suffering people, which included herself. She tended to herself. And she developed, as we were saying yesterday, an enormous capacity to hold her and other people's suffering. I need a sip. So yesterday we looked a lot at how she grew that capacity, how she chose love over hate, how as the war imploded in on her, she grew in her inner stature and robustness and freedom. We saw how she transformed from being pretty chaotic and all over the place with all her self-preoccupations to finding a deep inner pulse, a rhythm inside her, a presence that sustained her to and beyond her death. Death became her organizing principle. And I was saying yesterday, I know she loved the Psalms, and she says she kept a copy of the Psalms under her pillow in Westerbork. And I just have this image of her just reading those Psalms, and especially that line in Psalm 23, Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. She was living in the shadow of death, I mean big time. But she lived into that reality of, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. I want to read you a snippet from her diary. I didn't do this yesterday, I saved it for this morning. But this, to me, what I'm going to read is, to me, like the culmination of where it all went to for her. She wrote this, and then she sent it in a letter to a friend from Westerbork to a friend back in her hometown. And this is about 3 months before she died. Little did she know. It's one of the last things that she wrote that we know about. And it just expresses where she got to in her own being. I hope I can get through it. Are you ready? You know what? Make this your own prayer, if you can, if you want. And one more thing. You need to know that, in this book, by the way, I think we have some at the back if you want to buy it. But she describes here the conditions of the Westerbork transit camp. I mean, you would not believe how dire they were. This like dire circumstances. And this is what she writes. You have made me so rich, O God. Please let me share out your beauty with open hands. My life has become an uninterrupted dialogue with you, O God. One great dialogue. Sometimes when I stand in some corner of the camp, my feet planted on your earth, my eyes raised toward your heaven, tears sometimes run down my face, tears of deep emotion and gratitude. At night too, when I lie in my bed and rest in you, O God, tears of gratitude run down my face, and that is my prayer. I have been terribly tired for several days, but that too will pass. Things come and go in a deeper rhythm, and people must be taught to listen. It is the most important thing we have to learn in this life. I am not challenging you, O God. My life is one great dialogue with you. I may never become the great artist I would really like to be, but I am already secure in you, God. Sometimes I try my hand at turning out small profundities and uncertain short stories, but I always end up with just one single word, God. And that says everything. And there is no need for anything more. And all my creative powers are translated into inner dialogues with you. The beat of my heart has grown deeper, more active, and yet more peaceful. And it is as if I were all the time storing up inner riches. And we know that a little bit later, I mentioned this the other day, that a note was found that she tossed out of the train on her way to Auschwitz. A little postcard, and in it said, "We left the camp singing." And my point is this morning is that she was living out of a deeper consciousness. Like, how could she do that? Who could do that out of that normal, ordinary personhood? We can't. So she was just an ordinary person. She chose to commit and consent to love as soon as she felt the inner beckoning to do so. That was the bottom line. She chose to entrust herself to a love that was and is larger than life and death. A love that's larger than life and death. A love that encompasses beauty and terror. She entrusted herself, and it was that trust that enabled her to grow into this person that she became. Yesterday we talked a bit about the gesture of kneeling that became so essential to her. And we practiced it in the room. It was so cool. I think that was my highlight yesterday. I was just sitting here seeing everyone kneeling. It was amazing. And she made a practice of kneeling wherever she was. And then she did what she called Hineinhorken, which is a German word for hearkening, is what she called it, hearkening. Hearkening to myself, to others, and to the world. She said, I listen very intently with my whole being and try to fathom the meaning of things. God is what is deepest and best in me, who hearkens inside me. The most essential and deepest in me is hearkening unto the most essential and deepest in the other, God to God. And then she talked about reposing. And this is what I want to talk about this morning. I haven't even started yet. Reposing. Oh my God, I love this word, reposing. Okay, so here's the thing. The world is so beautiful. And yet, it is also as if we need reminding, so full of anger and fear and hatred and misunderstanding and chaos and suffering. And we're bombarded with this constantly. And even if we live a pretty comfortable life wherever we are, none of us can escape the awfulness of what's going on in the world. And neither should we. Sometimes it feels like we're all blindsided and at a loss as to what on earth we can do to affect anything. We feel disempowered and despairing and fearful. Or we live with a kind of low-level guilt, like stupid guilt, pointless guilt, guilt that doesn't achieve anything and that just makes us feel bad. So what are we to do? Pray? Demonstrate? Give money? Go to war zones? I mean, maybe, really, probably all those things are good ideas and have their place. And I think some of us withdraw or block out what we don't want to see because it's too much. And that too is not an entirely a bad thing. I mean, we need to look after our nervous systems. But of course it just adds to the deep down humdrum of guilt and a sense of our own powerlessness. And we end up feeling pretty pessimistic about the future of the world. So that's one scenario, or to whatever extent it's our felt sense of things, I think, But I want to suggest or highlight another approach, which I think is absolutely foundational and essential if anything is going to change on every level, in our personal lives, nationally, globally. And it's to do with, wait for it, reposing. We talk a lot about the evolution of consciousness, especially here in the chapel, the evolution of love. Ilya Delio, who was here 2 weeks ago, helped us to get that, to get with the program, to see how we are individually and collectively part of evolution. How, like she said, we are evolution. And by the way, if you haven't seen that, just go to Aspen Chapel on YouTube and watch it. It's amazing. Sunday from 2 weeks ago. But that we are part of evolution, that we carry within us this capacity and agency to bring to bear a different reality, this Christ consciousness that is within us. We might call it the kingdom of heaven, whatever we call it, but this divine agency and capacity, that it's not like God is out there and we are here hopelessly trying to figure things out. It's more that we are, each one of us are manifestations of the divine, and that we are part of God that is dynamism and the unfolding of things. And so, the impetus is on us to create the reality we want, to create this world. Or, as the poet Rilke said, I said yesterday, to bear Christ. He said, we are all building Christ. Or we're invited to create reality. And so from that standpoint, it's no good bemoaning the state of the world and the state of our lives and have any sense of victimhood. We are not victims of circumstances, nor do we need to be. And Etty showed us that. She was not victimized by her situation. We need to step up into a different, wider, way larger perspective and embrace another possibility, another way of living. And Etty lends us some help here. We have lost the art of reposing. Or maybe we never had it in the first place. Reposing was Etty's word for resting deeply, being nourished deeply in and with the divine. If we all knew how to repose, if we all knew how to touch that deep down, ever-flowing, wonderful, sustaining, nourishing, beautifying, wonderful love, how different the world would be. Honestly, I really think it boils down to this, that a shift in consciousness is directly related to our willingness to repose, like who would have thought? or to commune, to commune with the divine, whatever word you want to use. But it's the experience of deeply resting and communing with that divine, with that love, and to be transformed. That's what Etty did and demonstrated for us. It's, I was saying this yesterday, it's too simple. The simplicity of this is offensive to our egos, and we get argumentative about it with ourselves. We're like, it can't be that, it can't be that. Doesn't repose just sound a silly word? But I think it's that simple. It's like we think we need to go and get qualifications in transformation. We think we need to do courses and read books about how to transform. We don't. We just need to repose. We need to learn how to abide, how to be deeply, deeply connected with that love. Etty would say all of that, courses and books and all of that stuff is just so many props. It's all extra, it's superfluous. So yesterday we talked a lot about that quote that we often use here in the chapel, about spirituality being this cultivating of a sensitive and rewarding relationship with eternal truth and love. It's that's what we're talking about, being connected to love at that deepest point within us, and that it's that will change the world. Reposing, being deeply connected to the wellspring of love. That is what must be foundational to all action, to all forms of action, as it was with Etty. She became this powerful agent of love and peace and comfort and compassion to those suffering so horribly with her and around her because she was so resourced inside. She, in her words, safeguarded that dwelling place inside her where the divine dwells. She lived out of that place. So it's to the extent that we're deeply connected to that love, that we're really nourished and resourced inside, that our actions will carry any transformational power. Wherever we are and whatever we're doing, it doesn't matter. We all just need to find our way with this. It's really nuanced, and it will be different for all of us. So that's what Etty did. She made her life be foundationally about what she called hearkening to God, herself, and others, listening deeply and intently and reposing, giving herself to beauty wherever she found it, resting in that part of her. And then her life, to circle back to what we were saying at the beginning, became one whole beautiful act of worship. She gave her worth to the divine to the wonderfulness inside her that she came to love. I think that we've set up a false and really unhelpful polarity. That we're aware of the awful things happening in the world, and because we feel this kind of powerlessness, we end up impoverishing ourselves and then living into that humdrum of guilt. And really, it doesn't achieve anything. And, rather than twiddling our fingers and feeling bad about not doing more, we just need to step up. And that means giving ourselves to beauty, to connection, to anything that brings you alive. Like, what brings you alive? What makes you feel alive and vital? Do it. Give yourself wholeheartedly to it. Repose. Like, reposing is not for reposing's sake. It's for the sake of the whole. Etty lived into wholeness and she lived out of wholeness. And she knew her place in things and her place in history. She knew what would sustain her and help her. And so that's what she gave herself to, and that's what she lived out of. That's how she was able to give to others. So we need to know how to reclaim those parts of us that feel disconnected from love. Like, this is a whole lifetime's work. This is a long-term plan. We need to inquire, how can we root out all that rottenness inside us? How can we attend to our inner workshop, as Etty put it? I love that. I love that, this sense of the inner workshop. You can see her like getting to work inside herself. And then how can we repose? It's out of this reposed disposition, a deep contentment and connection with love, that the rest of our lives will flow. It's foundational. It's what the world needs. I mentioned this yesterday, but the very last line in Etty's diary, the very last line was, "We need to be willing to be balm for the wounds of the world." And so how else can we do that, honestly, than by first receiving that divine balm ourselves? Drinking deeply from that inner well and abiding there and learning and practicing living out from that place inside us. So I want to give us a few minutes of silence to feel into this, to feel into the vital, it's a good word, alive silence in this room, or wherever you are at home or wherever watching, to get in touch with the pulse in your heart, get in touch with the deep beat of your heart, that foundational pulse, love. To spend a few minutes hearkening, listening intently, just seeing what's there. So we're going to go into a little bit of silence. Just literally, just like scan your life, scan your heart, scan your body, scan the world. Lean into Etty's consciousness. Lean into the consciousness of anybody that you love, that you feel inspired by. And hearken. Listen. And listen to what's there, to the rhythm of your own being. Listen to the life force. Listen to any humble, tiny whispering. Listen to the intimacy of your unique relationship with the divine that nobody else knows about. Listen to what might be being asked of you. Listen to what you might need to let go of in your life. Listen to what you might need to take up and do, action-wise. Listen to, notice who you love. Notice who and what you adore. See if there's anyone in your heart that you really don't love. And bring them into, bring anyone you don't love into this field of love. We need to practice these difficult things. We need to practice getting out of our normal, automatic ways of loving and automatic ways of seeing, and expand our hearts. This is what the world needs. Like, this is what we need to do to bring about any change in anything. So we're going to have a few minutes of silence, and then I will bring us out. Stay exactly as you are, where you are, being very aware of an inner activation, an inner aliveness. And in a moment, I'm going to play something which is simply my expression, my form of praying kind of thing. It's my form of expressing grief and love. And when I can't find words in my life, when I don't know how to pray for parts of the world, when I don't know how to pray, I usually play. And, my recorder sits on my sofa and I just take to it every now and then. So I'm just going to play something in a second. Don't move, stay doing what you're doing and have this just be a backdrop for your process. Let your thoughts and your prayers and your heart go wherever it's going. I might end up crying into this thing, and that's the point. So, how can we dare to do something of what Etty did in her life? In the face of all the atrocities and horrible things that are happening in the world right now, are we willing to trust in a love that is greater than all of that and that is moving the whole universe forward? A love that includes you and me, people we love, people we really struggle to love. Can we entrust ourselves to this kind of love? And if we decide we can, then the consequences are massive. We join in with the cosmic dance. We become agents of transformation. We discover and live out of a deeply satisfying and rewarding relationship with that which underpins all reality, but that is intimately involved in our lives. And it's inside of this relationality, this perspective, that lies the promise of peace out of our deeply engaged hearts. Reposing and developing our very unique and personal relationship with the divine like this is what will deepen our consciousness. This is what will bring about the change in the world that we all long for. Our responsibility is to look at our willingness and then to show up in our lives exactly as they are, in our communities, in our circumstances, to live fully where we are. From that grounded place, reach out. From that grounded place, reach out across the world and just know that our efforts, our prayers, our consciousness, our engagement and interest and compassion make a difference to other places in the world, as quantum entanglement would have it, I think, so we're told. Ilya Delio did a whole thing on quantum entanglement. This isn't just nice thoughts, this is science. So that's it. We just be rooted, present, and willing to listen all the way through our lives, and to live out of that, to live into, that Viktor Frankl quote: between stimulus and response, there's a pause, and we need to live into that pause and out of that pause, into that infinite and generous spaciousness. That's our mandate. There, we can all go now, just kidding. I think, so over to Nicholas.
We're going to have an offertory now, which, of course, being a chapel, we have to keep our lights on. It's always from the sublime to the ridiculous. So we're going to do this in silence, just when if you feel moved to do that. In the room here, we have the plate over there. Just feel free to come and put some in the plate. If you're online, there's a donate button. Please feel free to use that. We'll just have a couple of minutes of silence just to do that, and then we'll have some questions after that.
So, as Nicholas said, it would be really great to have have anyone just share anything, really, about anything, from either from yesterday or any response to what I've just been sharing here. This is, literally all I'm doing here is I'm literally just sharing what's touched my heart. And I'm so aware that we're all here just like a conglomeration of influences, of people, of love that have, all that's influenced our lives, all the people. And I feel so aware of that, like we're inside of this huge relational field of love, and we just bring what we bring. So whatever your experiences or anything you might want to share, I'd love to hear it.
Thank you so much, Heather. I'm Liz, and what I'd like to say is the huge thanks I have for this space and this building. And as Heather reminded us yesterday, we're in a unique situation because, once again, none of us will ever be in this space, in this setting with these people again. So thank you for that. And in my heart, I know that someone right now is writing and telling the same story that Etty wrote. And 80 years from now, we hope that in this space, this same gathering will happen and share all the words that Heather has shared with us today.
Liz, thank you so much. Isn't that the point of all of this? It's like this ripples down the generations. This love and wisdom ripples down the generations, and throughout all history, it will always be the case. That's so cool. Thank you.
Heather, in Etty's diary, or maybe even sort of her background, but in her diary, did she ever make reference to kind of, in addition to her inner work, sort of psychological, spiritual growth, so she could then, be such a giver? Did she talk about what, sort of being reinforced with sort of big history and bad things happen in the arc of history, but in the long run, you have to have faith that you can contribute to that. And so, while we're here, we show up, we do what we can, the best we can, type of thing, and for while we're here, whether it's 29 years or 92 or something. Did she, because she was a very intellectual lady, I assume that, she was reading philosophy, et cetera.
Yeah.
Did she get any sort of, do you think, reinforcement from that?
Yeah, I feel like Etty's perspective of history and understanding where she was in place and time in history was one of her secrets. Like, this is like how she managed to have that expansive perspective, that she understood, she read. And so, she talks about, I said this yesterday, about being like on the, looking down from the palace. How did you remember how she said at the palace? Looking down over history, being able to see it with an eagle's eye perspective. I just think that's so crucial, to the extent that we can understand humanity and have compassion on, what's happening and what happens in humans' hearts. And just to see that we're part of the mess. We're part of the mess, and we're part of the healing of the mess. And, we do what we can in our lives. Etty really got that. And I wish I had time to. There are a couple of amazing bits in her diary about that, about her perspective of history. So, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's so, so important. As long as we're, stuck in our little worlds and, we're just living our lives, we're not going to be able to do what we're invited to do. We have to be able to see wars happen, and there'll be more wars, and this is the human condition, and we need to step up, wars and all, with this kind of love that we're talking about.
I have no idea what I'm going to say. I just was sitting there in the chair thinking, I have to raise my hand because I want you to know that my heart is open to all of you, and somehow I'd like to share that with you. And I do something called Dance Alive, and it's just a little process of movement. And if you would just take a minute to breathe and open your heart with me and experience this moment and breathe. And any sound that comes, that's really what I wanted to do, is just shake it loose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. I came across a great quote from the Vedas the other day in meditation, and it said, "The ignorant person seeks material possessions. The intelligent person seeks spiritual riches, but the wise person just loves and receives everything."
Oh,
So
can
I
you
guess
say it again,
I guess
Andy?
I want to be wise.
Andy, will you say it one more time? Say it one more time.
The ignorant person seeks material possessions. The intelligent person seeks spiritual riches, but the wise person just loves and receives everything.
That's so amazing. And I want to piggyback on that and just read you this tiny little thing here. Just this one bit that I just think is so pertinent. Etty says, "There are, it is true, some who even at this late stage are putting their vacuum cleaners and silver forks and spoons into safekeeping instead of guarding you, dear God. And there are those who want to put their bodies in safekeeping, but who are nothing more than a shelter for 1,000 fears and bitter feelings. And they say, I shan't let them get me in their clutches." But they forget that no one is in your clutches who is in your arms. I am beginning to feel a little more peaceful, God, thanks to this conversation with you. It's like so simple. I just love what you said. So, thanks. Anybody else? If not, I want to share with you a poem that Justin, some of you know Justin who was here yesterday. He sent me this poem that he wrote yesterday for Etty. I love this, so I asked if I could share it this morning, and he said that I could, so here we go. I love that we have a poet in our, here. So this is from Justin. It's called Hearth, for E.H., Etty Hillesum. There is a hearth inside of you. How strong is the fire there? How warm is its glow? How bright is its light? How well does it heat you in the cold? How gracefully does it guide you in the dark? How fully does it fill the vacuum within you, the vacant nest of longing? How does it greet that infinite, beautiful, terrible darkness, welcoming it like an old friend? How often do you nurture this flame, feeding it the kindling of your calling, stoking it with the attention of your heart? Or is it fueled by the pain of the world, the parched throat of suffering, the cold touch of fear, of loneliness? All of this turned to ashes, the smoke of words and deeds. How does it warm the others who are close to you? Does it also light their way? Quietly, without a teaching, without even words, does it smolder too in them? Or does it even ignite? Giving without taking, serving without duty, unfettered by importance. When you are gone, where will your fire live? When the birds of grief have flown, what light will remain? Hope is not a thing to cling to. Hope is the way things are. Yay, thank you, Justin. Do you want to do your bit before we end? I want to end with a thing, but do you want to do your bit now?
I can do my bit now. Yes.
Okay.
So, well, my bit, first of all, is to thank Heather incredibly for... and what I want to thank her for is all the hard work that it takes to fully show up at an event like this, and like Etty, to warm our hearts by her heart being aflame with what she is passionate about. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. And I think you've warmed our hearts, as in Justin's word, by you really sharing what's really key and important to you. So I think we're all incredibly grateful to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my little bits are, first of all, if when we finish, you'd be willing to move the chairs to the side, just stack them up at the side, I'd really appreciate that. That would really help me. Secondly, to say that there are books at the back, and if you want to buy one of Etty's books, they're $20. You can either use the QR code or put a check or a little bit of cash in the box. Please do join us downstairs for some tea and coffee and yummies. You're most welcome to do that. Also, just be aware of the art show atmosphere. Really have a look at that. It's in conjunction with High Rocky's harm reduction, and there are excellent pieces of work up there, so do have a look at them. So this week, what's happening is we have meditation at 8:30 in the morning in the Gallery Zendo, and that's between 8:30 and 9:30 on Tuesday morning. In the evening on Tuesday, Mimi will be doing yoga and meditation here at 5:30 in the sanctuary, so do come along to that. Developing Consciousness is happening on Thursdays. You can just drop into that. This week, we're looking at the nature of personal transformation. You know, as we go through all this stuff, how do we make a difference to our lives? So you can come along to that. Now, as you all, everyone's aware, Heather took a picture of me in the bathroom beforehand. But I just want to say that our next event is Susan Potion, and she is absolutely fantastic. She is Christian Dillow's teacher. Christian Dillow was here with us last year. And she is really going to be talking about, rather than mindfulness, bodyfulness. How do you listen to your body? How do you develop emotional intelligence? How do you have that aspect of you inform you and develop you? And she's written this book called Heart Open, Body Awake. You can get it on Amazon. We will be getting some copies of that as well. Be here at the event. In order to sign up for that, you can use the QR code or just go on our website. It'd be lovely to see as many of you here as possible for that event. And if I put the leaflets out, so you can just take it and stick it on a grocery store wall or anywhere that you can find somewhere to stick it. I'd really appreciate that. Also, just a little reminder that I'm doing this little video of things at the chapel, and I may come up to you and just ask you to say, I love my Aspen chapel, and just so I can put that in our little videos. So I may be doing that downstairs. I think that's it. I've done my bit now.
Oh, thanks.
So I'll leave you to finish this off.
Okay, so just to finish, but I just want to say just about Justin's poem, what really hit my spot about it is that literally this last week especially, I've just had this image of a fire, like a blazing fire, like inside my heart, in Etty's heart, like in all of our hearts in the chapel, like just this fire. And then he writes it, there is a hearth inside of you. How strong is the fire there? How warm is its glow? How bright is its light? So, this is our thing. Let's take this fire. Let's take this movement and joy and oomph and life into the rest of our lives, into every encounter we have with anybody and anything. And on that happy note, let's do this. I want to end with where we started. So in a sec, to stand up and to just, like, wherever you are, just face a wall, like face the outside of the chapel. And I'm going to we're going to find those notes again. And with your hands out to the world, to places that are in your mind and heart, just to sing these notes. Let's just see how long we can, keep it going for a while, these notes. I'll just sing them. I'll sing them, and then you pick your note. And send your blessings, our blessings, out to the world. Okay. La, la, la. Pick your note. La, 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 Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.